Sports.
The Pete Souza Show, presented by Slovacics. We are back, better than ever. By the way, happy 1 year anniversary to everybody. We've been at this for over a year now. Yeah, Swingler though, we really didn't get started until we got his ass up here. Scotty Swingler on the wheels of steel today. The Pete Souza Show, presented by Slovacics. A lot to get into today. We're talking Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter Pro Day. Or what do they call it? Like Showcase Day out there in Colorado. We will get into that. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Next week, we're going to be joined by Todd McShay, trying to figure out a day. McShay from The Ringer and formerly of ESPN, and my man Steve Minch, two guys I went to Richmond with. And McShay and I we could say we played football, but we were both injured. Minch did play all 4 years, but we were all thick as thieves. And we all did work together back in the day at Football Scouts in the War Room. So I'm pumped to bring the band back together. Last year, we talked with Jim Nagy, who also was with us at Football Scouts. Nagy, now the general manager at Oklahoma. Maybe I'll reach out, see if we can get him before the draft, but I don't know what his situation is like that now. You know, when he was with the Senior Bowl, he could comment on all the prospects. I'm sure he can now. We'll check him out. But yeah, we'll talk about Pro Day. We'll start with that, but a couple other things. We got Nick Pick talking about Major League Baseball, some torpedo bat stuff. Also, the Yankees, I think Aaron Judge plays his 1,000th game tonight. Nick is a diehard Yankees fan, been on that beat for a while, so we'll get his baseball thoughts. And also want to talk about a rough ending in the NIT. John Morant can't seem to get it, and I don't know what is happening there. Of course, well, not of course, but I do want to talk a little bit about this dude, Calvin Darden, who just got sentenced to 12 years. He scammed Chandler Parsons and Dwight Howard. He scammed Dwight Howard out of $7 million. And this dude's going to prison for a long time. But I want to start with, like I said, Shedeur Sanders and what's going on out there today. As far as out there in Boulder today at their Showcase Day, as far as what is going on with the draft, the top of the draft, a lot of folks feel like Cam Ward is going to go number one. That's just kind of it with Tennessee. Tennessee has done nothing to improve their situation at quarterback. And you listen to Dan Graziano, you listen to McShay, you listen to folks who are not only this is their job to cover the draft, but also they're sourced up. And it really does seem like Cam Ward is going number one. Now, I'm not like a draft expert. On paper, eye test, I don't love it. I heard a report yesterday. This guy Schultz, who covers the Giants, was on Mad Dog Russo, and he said, we go deep on these guys, right? Because you're putting millions upon millions upon millions of dollars behind them. And with a guy like Cam Ward, there's rumors. It reminds me of Draft Day with Kevin Costner that like not everybody loved him at every stop he was at. Remember, Cam Ward started at Incarnate Word. And just finished up at Miami after shattering records. Shedeur Sanders will throw today, obviously. It's going to be super scripted, which is how these pro days go. The Giants are there at number 3. And as far as Shadur is concerned, that's where apparently things get really interesting, right? Cleveland is at 2. The thought is that Ward would go 1, potentially Hunter at 2, because the Browns like the idea not only of him playing wide receiver, but also playing defensive back, being able to be impactful on both sides of the ball right away. That is almost like a steal if you think about it, because, in the NFL, having a lockdown corner or just a really good corner is essential to being able to do what you want to do on the defensive side of the football. And then you think, okay, we've got opportunities with him as an explosive playmaker at wide receiver, like we're seeing right here. And also maybe you want to throw him in a kick returner. There's a lot that Travis Hunter brings you, and he also brings you an amazing attitude. All reports are like the dude doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't party. Good-natured dude, plays video games and kicks ass at football. I can get with that. And then you go to 3 with Sheduer, where things get so interesting. Again, the more research you do, looking at Shedeur Sanders, and I'm not going to sit here and say I sit here and look at tape. McShay does. That's where Todd and I I wanted to go out and party in New York City when we lived together and we were working for Football Scouts in the War Room, and he wanted to party a little bit, but then the next day he was up watching tape on, Drew Brees at the time or whoever. And that's what Todd does, and he's brilliant at it. And so are a lot of these other guys, especially guys in NFL front offices. Now, there's stuff you hear about Sheduer, like after the combine, right? He was aloof, maybe. Wasn't necessarily dialed in some of the interview situations. In the media session, he sits down and looks at the camera. And it's funny, like, I don't know Shedeur Sanders, but working on Inside the 12 all year long, covering the Big 12. And then, talking to Kevin Borba out there in Colorado. I've been to Boulder, called 3 basketball games out there. You have the opportunity to speak with people who are close to the athletic department. And everybody loves Shedeur Sanders. Truly. I mean, he's a kid. And he's a kid with a lot of resources, right? Coming from a family like that. Most kids that I grew up with that had fathers that were multimillionaires, you were dancing on the edge there. I mean, it was 50-50 whether this guy's going to be a complete asshole because he's grown up in an environment that's just so much different than the rest of ours. I think Shedeur Sanders has beaten that temptation and that problem and that sense of entitlement. And the folks that know him best really seem to like him. Now he sits down at the combine for his media session and he looks right in the camera and he says, "Legendary." And then he just starts. I think a lot of writers are like, what? But that's who the dude is. Now, there's, again, like social media, right? Which shouldn't even be social media. I was thinking yesterday, it should be like anti-social media because people sit in their houses or apartments or wherever they live all day and don't go anywhere because they think they're being connected by looking through social media. It's actually anti-social. But if you look on social media and you hear a lot of reports and rumors coming out of that combine situation, was that Sheduer was, not as necessarily attentive or respectful or whatever the report was. We weren't in the room. And I certainly haven't heard an NFL official or somebody who was in the room go on record saying it was like a disaster. It was comments that were made to McShay that McShay, as any good draft analyst would do, shared them with us. That's what we hope he'll do. That's why we subscribe to these guys and follow these guys, because they have access that we don't have. And they also have skills that we don't have as far as like watching film and breaking down players. But the Giants are probably not going to take Shedeur Sanders at number 3 because they just don't like him as a player. It's got nothing to do with him as a dude. Brian Daboll isn't going to the workout today, the Giants head coach. Joe Shane will be there, their general manager, and like a bunch of scouts and front office dudes. Remember, there's 18 guys working out today in Boulder. So it's not just like, hey, a one-stop shop. We're here to see Travis, or a two-stop shop, Travis and Sheduer. And if you do go today, you're not necessarily going to see, again, this is access that people don't have all the time. You're going to see how Shedeur Sanders handles the day as a dude. Like, what's his body language like? How is he treating the people around him? Like, these are, I mean, you can overanalyze all this stuff, but that's truly why a lot of these scouts and front office folks are going today and what they are going to be looking for. One thing I hear in Dan Graziano talk, and just watching him this year, he was a tough guy to evaluate. And Graziano echoed that this morning because of a lot of stuff. Let's start with the first one. Colorado's offensive line was awful. I mean, they got better this year. 2 years ago, it was probably one of the worst in like a Power 4, Power 5 conference. And it's really hard to evaluate a player who's constantly running for his life and picking himself up off the ground. It is also difficult to evaluate a guy whose passing game is so short so often. Like, a lot of times, Colorado's offense was such that he's throwing into the line of scrimmage or just beyond the line of scrimmage. What people want to see is how the ball can explode off of his hand for those deep passes, right? That deep, they call it like the 7 route or the 9 route, right? 7 route. 9 route's just like a fly pattern. But, that long post, that long out pattern, right? Or the flag or whatever. My football terminology is lacking today. But you get the picture, right? Can he make all the difficult throws Can he do it explosively? Apparently, people say that his vision is like elite, like all pro. His vision down the field. And really, I can say by watching all the games, almost all the games he played at Colorado, and also, tracking the aftermath of those games, because getting ready for that Inside the 12 show for the Big 12, he had a great attitude. Like, even after he was getting his ass kicked, he was still able to pick himself up off the ground and really didn't give his, every quarterback on the field of battle is going to be a leader, be a little bit surly, right? Like, I'm not saying like you got to be Dan Marino, but there's a little bit in between where it's like there's a Tom Brady, right, who's like the GOAT, but hey, let's keep guys accountable, make that block, but you don't embarrass him. So Shedeur was never embarrassing guys, and in a situation where if he was somebody that was like an empty guy in a uniform and was just looking to shrug accountability and blame everybody else, he had many, many, many opportunities to do so. So every once in a while, if he was frustrated picking himself up off the ground and like, what the F, to an offensive lineman, like, I'm fine with that. Like, we got human nature going on here, right? There's frustration. I think a great example, and this one hits close to home for us here in Central Texas and Baylor fans, certainly does for Scotty. That football game early in the season against Baylor, Baylor was kicking his ass, right? And then they get in that victory cigar formation against Colorado. Baylor has the lead. They're on the road at Boulder. At the time, I think was it week 3, Scotty? I think it was week 4. Baylor was 2-1 at the time. So Baylor's looking at an opportunity to go 3-1 early in the year. And my huge take on this was that Garmin Randolph was hurt and he was out of the game. He had gotten injured during the game. And if Garmin Randolph was in the game, and when Baylor goes to that cigar formation where, it's like, we're just going to stop the Hail Mary because they're going to go down the field. Sheduer rolls out and there's not a defensive lineman who's quick enough or athletic enough to keep him in the pocket or make the play or hurry his throw. So Sheduer has all day to roll out to the left side and throws it all the way down the field. Here it is. Scotty Swingler's on it, dude. And there's the touchdown, right? Like, amazing play. And I think one of the reasons that enabled Shedeur Sanders to make a play like that was because of his will to win, his moxie, his belief in himself. It's like that next level competitive nature that I think makes him so alluring to scouts, because the average quarterback with the average mindset, right? He's obviously, there's nothing average about Shedeur Sanders, but if his headspace was one that he could go in the tank easily, he's not going to have he's just not going to be able to make a play like that late in the game after he's been getting his ass kicked. Scotty, what do you got? I can tell Scotty's ready to go here.
Well, let me turn my microphone on. I just like talking football, man. And I have opinions about Big 12 and quarterbacks. And one of my favorite things to do actually in every year in the NFL draft is decide which quarterbacks are going to succeed and not. So like, for instance, I was very down on Caleb Williams. I'd seen him play against Baylor and throw for like 70 yards against a Matt Rule defense. And so, Dave Aranda, I forget 21. Yeah. Dave Aranda. But anyway, I think two things to consider about Shadur. One is that this quarterback class is the weakest in a very long time. And that's not a knock on him, but it's just to say that like even 3-4 months ago, a lot of what we were hearing is, Shadur in other years would be a 2nd, 3rd round grade. But this year he's one of the 2 best. And that's obvious. That's clear. So it's like, are you overdrafting him and Cam Ward in the top 10? There's arguments to be made, because if you need a quarterback, you need a quarterback. But I think that still stands. Like I think I watch him and I think that's like a 2nd round pick, and he's going to go like 2nd to 5th overall, somewhere in there. I think you said there's nothing average about Sheduer, and I think mentally I would agree with you. I think questions about his arm strength are really legit. Like even in that highlight package I was putting together this morning, the deep throws look like they're taking effort. Like he reminds me of Mahomes and some of the way you said vision. That's good. Like the way he sees things, the way he can escape. Like he's very crafty. But the difference is Mahomes could throw it like 70 yards with his feet planted. Like I don't think Sheduer has that level arm talent. It's going to be interesting. I also wonder, because he has made, you mentioned this at the very beginning, a couple comments over the years where he is it's almost that very blurry gray line between confident and cocky.
Yeah.
I just wonder if he doesn't get lit up for a couple weeks, especially if he doesn't go to a good team. Like, can he elevate a Cleveland Browns to be competitive? I don't think so. That doesn't mean he's a bad NFL quarterback. It's going to be very honestly, fascinating to watch.
I honestly think one of the best case scenarios for him will be to get drafted by the Giants and sit behind Russell Wilson.
I do too.
I think that will be like a tremendous. Even Troy Aikman sat behind Steve Walsh for a little bit. Like,
well, we just brought up Patrick Mahomes. Like, and Mahomes has talked about how valuable it was to sit behind Alex Smith.
And I just think really it's for peace of mind. Like a lot of times, like these guys, we throw them to the wolves, and they get shattered mentally.
Yeah.
And like there's just no coming back from that. You can go all the way back to a guy who was, again, mentally, he would tell you nowadays he just wasn't all there, but like Achilles Smith. He got taken by the Bengals and just thrust into a starting lineup in one of the worst organizations in football. That guy's career was over before it started because of how bad the Bengals were and how terrible he was to start. And the combination can just completely destroy you, right?
Totally.
As far as your confidence is concerned.
Totally. I mean, people have argued around Waco that that's Robert Griffin's problem. He got thrust into a dysfunctional organization with the worst owner in the NFL, and they put him on the field when he shouldn't have been on the field.
So when they had him come back to
yeah. And now I know RG3, he wanted to play. So like I don't want to just but the Russell Wilson thing's interesting because I think those are very similar players.
Yeah.
Remember, Russell Wilson was a third-round pick, right? Third-round pick. And similar things of like, he's very mobile. He can get away from pressure, good vision, good intelligence, savvy, right? But there were questions about his arm strength coming into the league. That was a critique of him. So and he's won a Super Bowl. So like that competitive edge.
Well, that's another thing. And I think we get so hung up on a body type, physical tools. I mean, of course, right? We're talking about the freaking NFL. You've got to be next level athlete to be even considered to play in that league, right? When you look at the numbers game across the human race. However, like there are guys who can do it ugly. And and there is that, like Patrick Mahomes is weird looking. The way that
nobody's ever played the position like him.
No, his build, his arm strength, the way his point of release, like, but he's got that. He's got that special thing. And about Sheduer, I always say this, and he's another guy, right, that I put in my Mount Rushmore of players of famous parents that were in the NFL. Like Sheduer is not afraid of the biggest stage.
Spotlight.
Yes. And some other and players that don't, and it's because of the access he was granted as a young man, being around his dad, being around locker rooms. I always say the same thing for Steph Curry. We could say it for Pat Mahomes with his dad. I think there's something to that.
Totally agree. Another guy, you were talking about unconventional looking. I'm still convinced this guy didn't get a fair shake, but people forget Vince Young won Rookie of the Year and took two different Titans teams that were like 0-5 to the playoffs.
Yes.
Like he wasn't a super long-term NFL quarterback for about 5 years. Vince Young was a really good NFL quarterback. And his release was whack. So all that stuff I think is overblown. I think the questions about his arm strength are legit. And I think questions of how I think fit is really important.
Yeah.
And I think fit is more important for most quarterbacks than we think. Like Patrick Mahomes is amazing.
Yeah.
He also landed with Andy Reid.
Yeah. Yep.
That is the dream 1-2 combo, the right quarterback with the wrong coach can end up being the wrong quarterback quickly. Like I think we've seen that throughout
That's well put.
the draft process as well.
That is well put. And as far as the theater of the draft is concerned, if Sheduer doesn't go third or by the third pick, which he very likely could not, now you're talking, it gets so like
I don't think he will, by the way.
No, so then it goes back to the conversation we had here months ago. It's like, the dude may not get picked in the first round. Like it's a possibility. And it's possible.
I don't think so.
The odds are not in its favor, but it's possible. Now, but imagine that happens. It would be crazy. What the Raiders did with what's his face, just re-upping with from West Virginia, Geno Smith. By the way, as a guy who like pulls for the Raiders, I'm very open about that here. Like, I'm like, what, dude? Like, that's not the answer.
He's played very well the last 2 seasons.
Whatever. It's not the answer. But it shows that Geno's not going to, like, the Raiders won't take him more than likely.
Pete, I'm going to tell you right now why he won't get out of the first round.
Why?
Because if the Cowboys are picking,
oh gosh,
no, tell me I'm wrong. If the Cowboys' first round pick comes up and Shedeur Sanders is on the board, my camera just went out. I got too excited about the Dallas Cowboys. StreamYard said enough. Jerry Jones will not be able to resist. I promise. I would put.
When did the Cowboys pick? They're like what, 16 or something? Like
20 something.
20 something.
I could because we were bad this year.
How the hell are they picking 21st?
Dallas Cowboys first round.
All right,
pick.
and then we'll take a break.
Let's
and then
look it up.
Nick Pick coming up talking Major League Baseball.
12 overall.
Oh, 12th overall. Okay, so yeah.
Okay, listen.
We should have known that. By the way.
So we should have. Listen, he's not getting past 12. I would put $1 million on it.
All right, $1 million on him not going past 12. 1,000 games for Aaron Judge. Nick picked in the bullpen. The Pete Souza Show presented by Solagics. Coming up, talking a little baseball next, and then we'll wrap up later in the show. I got to get into this Ja Morant stuff. What's going on with that young guy? And what I just don't get it. I want to show you the end of a basketball game that could affect a young man for the rest of his life, but I hope it doesn't. We'll be back.